Today's edition of MacVoices is supported by Linode. You can build it on Linode. Get started today with $100 in free credit for MacVoices listeners and viewers at linode.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. This is the third and final part of our conversation, our virtual visit with Adam Engst of TidBITS and the Apple CIDER Mac User Group of New York. This time around, we answer some of the group's questions, look forward to potentially some additional Apple announcements before the end of the year, and more. So let's get right back to it with Adam and Apple CIDER. It is interesting to look because you jump on one bandwagon or the other, and if you're not looking at all the bandwagons that are out there, you really are doing yourself a disservice, depending on how you use your phone and how important it is to you. So
yeah. I mean, in the end, what it really comes down to is that these are just gorgeous, gorgeous phones and
new colors.
New colors.
New colors. Yes. I'm loving the blue. Let me tell you, those both the blue actually in both the iPhone 12 and the iPhone 12 Pro. They're different blues, and they're both gorgeous. Tanya got a product red for her iPhone SE, and she's like, I need the clear case now because this is a beautiful phone. I do not want to hide my beautiful red phone. I'm not personally wild about the green. The green's a little sherbety to me, but hey.
The midnight green last year was kind of nice.
Yeah, the midnight green was kind of cool. But yeah, the new colors are great. Just overall, these are great phones, and the only thing I think they suffer from is just that it's not like the last year's phones or most of the phones before that there's anything wrong with them. And so there is I think some of the upgrade decisions are getting a little harder or just become, oh, I want it. I don't need it. There's nothing really wrong with it, but I want it. And that's the only problem. The only thing that we were hoping to see, which was just kind of fantasy wish list, was the way Apple did Touch ID in the top button on the 4th generation iPad Air, which we haven't seen yet. I mean, keep in mind, it hasn't shipped yet. So we don't know if it works, but it seemed like a great idea. And I would have loved to see Apple try to build the Touch ID sensor into the side button on these phones, or maybe give them a top button again. I much prefer the top button to the side button, because the side button, I mean, it's a real problem because whenever you squeeze the sides, you also change the volume. I mean, you can't easily just squeeze with one finger. I mean, you can, but I'm always making the mistake. Whereas with a top button, it just was much, much easier. So I have to assume, again, there's probably something. It's the camera. That's the problem. The camera's in the way. They can't do the top button anymore.
Yeah, or you take a screenshot when you squeeze it
of either a photo of your fingers.
Yeah. I've got a lot of those.
So, but yeah, I mean, the Touch ID would have been nice again for this year of mask wearing, but I have to assume that the engineering abilities there, was just too much in too short a time. Because I mean, let's face it, Apple had to have this thing designed in February. I mean, the hardware doesn't come out overnight.
Yeah. That's I think that's the perfect point, Adam. That because I know I've seen a number of discussions about that. Why didn't they put this here, especially during COVID-19? And it's like, well, if we had COVID-19 earlier, then maybe they'd had time to respond. But I have to wonder, okay, how much more would it cost to make a Face ID and Touch ID, and then let that be a user selectable setting?
Yeah, or just whatever worked. Yeah,
there was something in one of the analyst calls about Apple had insurance against natural disasters in their product supply chain.
Huh.
So they weren't hit as bad as some other companies who did. In fact, I read Wimbledon had insurance, and so Wimbledon got a $10 million payout this year because they had insurance in case the match was canceled.
Wow. Amazing stuff. Yeah. I mean, actually, what I'm willing to bet that Apple is doing research into Face ID with masks. And two reasons. One is because, I mean, everyone's wearing masks, for now, why wouldn't they be at least looking into it? Could they get enough facial information with a mask to still have Face ID work effectively? But the other one is that in Asia, people wear masks a lot even before COVID-19. This is not a new thing for large chunks of the world, and when people are out in public. And so I have to believe that it's something that Apple, would like to be able to do. And they do pretty well with sunglasses and hats and things. So probably they're focusing more on the lower part of the face normally, but maybe they can tweak that to focus on the upper part of the face some more, and still bring Face ID to a mask possibility.
Could they use like a retinal ID?
The way again, the amount of technology they put in here, maybe. I don't know. I forget the numbers. Wasn't like it's like 30,000 beams of light that they use for Face ID or something like that. I mean, again, just mind-boggling that they can do this kind of stuff. So
the LiDAR sensor can see through the mask and get your facial structure.
Precisely. I mean, right? There's just there's all sorts of things that you do not want to bet against the geeks these days. My best example of this, and this is actually several years old, so I mean, it hasn't actually happened, but I saw a research paper from University of Washington's computer science department. They had figured out how to have a person be able to control playback of music. So it wasn't a lot of commands. It was like, more volume, less volume, stop, start kind of things. By waving your hands in the air, and what they did was evaluate how you interrupted the Wi-Fi signals in the room just by moving your body around, and in a particular way. And I was sort of like, okay, this really hits, Arthur C. Clarke's, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. I mean, when you can say, turn off the music by waving your hand and detect that by, I interrupted the Wi-Fi signals that just happened to be there. Magic. It's just magic.
Well, Samsung had a phone a couple of years ago where they were doing that, where you could just swipe your hand across it, like turn pages on a website, and that disappeared.
Yeah,
they don't talk about that feature anymore.
Samsung's more of the throw stuff against the wall and see if it sticks. And a lot of their stuff, honestly, I think it doesn't stick. Part of the problem is, and this is what Apple does well, actually, is a lot of Samsung stuff doesn't stick because they do it badly. Like, that isn't a bad idea, but I'll bet they implemented it badly, just like their foldable phone was implemented badly. And then people think, well, that's just a stupid gimmick, or it doesn't work, or it breaks, or whatever. And, so, you have to assume Apple's looking at all this stuff too. They're just being very careful about what they implement.
On the Mac, you can use facial gestures and hand gestures to control certain features. People don't know about it.
Yeah, it's accessibility.
But you can do it. I mean, it's kind of useless, but I mean, it can work for you if you're doing some things that you just want to raise your hand or smile, and it will do a task.
Yeah.
Now, there's not that many tasks, but the Mac does have that.
So if you want to find this, I never wrote an article about it. I tested it. It didn't quite work super well. And this is mostly for people who obviously are mobility challenged in some form or fashion. If you go into System Preferences, Accessibility, and then scroll down to Pointer Control, and then there's a button for alternate control methods, you can enable alternate pointer actions and also enable head pointer. And if you click those options buttons, like the head pointer, basically the camera can be looking and tracking the pointer to where you look, which is super cool. It turns out to not actually be very useful if you can actually use a mouse or a trackpad or something normally. And then the alternate pointer options, you can define anything you want. So you could say, for instance, when I open my mouth, left click. When I smile, double click. So again, very impressive stuff, but not the way we think about doing all this right now. So I'm really mostly aimed at folks who simply need it because they can't do anything else. But you see these like the Avengers movies where they get the wall of the virtuals displays and they're like flinging stuff around. I think it's a terrible interface, but it's the kind of thing where we start to see that working with these cameras watching us and then reacting, it's going to be a thing at some point, that we can detect a lot of that kind of stuff.
Adam,
and it looks cool on TV.
Yes. Yeah,
Adam,
Larry.
could you elaborate a little bit on something being introduced, but I think what was the term you said, implemented poorly?
Well, so basically, Andy Ihnatko made this analogy long ago, which is that Apple is a sharpshooter. So Apple, even for the product levels, Apple picks something, call it maybe 5G or MagSafe or something like that, and they make sure they do it really well. And they make a big deal about it, and they focus on, relatively few things at a time. In fact, that the iPhone 12 was a fair amount in terms of MagSafe and 5G and some of the camera technology. Whereas a lot of other companies, and Samsung's notable among them, they have great engineers, don't get me wrong, they can do wonderful things, but it feels like they're just throwing things against the wall and seeing if anything catches people's attention. And it's not necessarily a bad way to see, to what's going to happen, because we don't know what people are going to love, right? Apple's certainly come out with features that people didn't love, and it's easier to see in software sometimes. Like Launchpad on the Mac, not a big thing. They thought, oh, everyone wanted to be like the iPhone. No, it turns out most Mac users didn't. Some people use it; it's there, but not a big thing. And there's certainly plenty of others: Finder tabs, even Mission Control. Mission Control can do a vast amount more than most people ever do. But what I think Samsung and the like do is they sort of test market against real products. So rather than doing all their testing in secret, which is what Apple does, and product design in secret, and then ship, Samsung will basically just ship and then see what people think.
Yeah, they might come out with 20 new phones in a year, each with slightly different features.
Yeah, like they did it with the folding phone, remember?
Yeah. Now that said, Microsoft has now come out with a folding phone that I've heard. I think it actually doesn't work very well, unfortunately. But like Joanna Stern, the Wall Street Journal reviewed it. I did a video review of it, and she's like, the hardware is actually really good. That the a lot of it, the usage pattern and the hardware and all that actually works pretty well. The problem was that as an actual device, it didn't work very well. That it was really, really buggy, and so but that's the kind of thing that you can't do. And Apple, well, I shouldn't say you can't do. You can do, but I don't think it's as an effective a sales and marketing approach. I think it's better to pick your one or two things and really get them as right as you possibly can, and then plug the hell out of them.
See, what's happening is people aren't looking at science fiction closely enough. There's a lot of sci-fi shows where the phone is at, it pulls out of a cylinder and then slides back in. And a rolling screen would be much easier to make than a folding screen.
Well, yeah, you go get right on that, Steve. Please. We all want our rolling screens.
Well, we're getting, there's been a lot of stuff done with digital paper. I don't think it's ever quite hit, but
Today's edition of MacVoices is supported by Linode. Build your website today with a $100 free credit for MacVoices viewers and listeners at linode.com/MacVoices. If you visit linode.com/MacVoices right now, you get $100 in free credit for your next server project. That means that you could build a WordPress site for yourself or your business, or set up a VPN server, or deploy a cloud application. Whatever you want, you can build it on Linode. But building your server is only part of the story. Linode has 11 global data centers around the world so that you can put your server anywhere it needs to be. And when things go wrong, Linode has 24/7, 365 human support. Yes, human support. No tiers, no passing from representative to representative, no ticket numbers. And that's invaluable when you need answers to your questions and service to your server. No matter what your needs are, Linode should be your first stop when shopping for a new server. It will almost certainly be your last. To get $100 in credit, visit linode.com/MacVoices and click the Create Free Account button to get started. You'll have a new server up and running in no time. Linode.com/MacVoices. Do it now. Thanks to Linode for their support of MacVoices.
I had a general thought. I'll share this with you. I think we all say, "Oh man, life used to be simpler," and it did. It's absolutely true that life was simpler, and it always has been simpler in the past, because life, what we call it, basically obeys evolutionary principles. And in evolution, organisms become more complex, and the world it follows that exactly. So yeah, it used to be a lot easier to do certain things on a Mac because the Mac couldn't do nearly as much. And the only corollary to that is that sometimes things are easier to do because we put so much effort into the back end to make the front end simple. And so the front end seems very simple, but as soon as anything goes wrong in the back end, good luck. Cars used to be much simpler, but they aren't Teslas. A Tesla is not the sort of car you can do things to because it's so much more complex than your 1964 Dodge Dart. So yes, I just dated myself as listening to Car Talk.
Adam,
yeah.
Speaking of Tesla, I drove a friend's Tesla the other day, and I asked about plugging in my phone.
Oh yeah.
And he said, "Oh no, you just sit it on the console and it charges."
Yep.
Is that true for any of the iPhones? Do you know?
It should be true for. I can't think of how far back it goes.
iPhone 8 and
8,
later.
8, yeah. So that's
all the newer ones.
Yeah, that's going to be the Qi, or it's spelled QI, but it's pronounced Qi wireless charging standard, and it's a good thing. Because you just put it in the right place and it works. I mean, one of the other things that Apple announced with iOS 14 and CarPlay, although it requires buying a new car, is that you'll be able to use your phone and your watch to actually unlock and start your car instead of a key.
Yes.
But as I understand it, because I do not have a brand new BMW, which is the only car that supports it at the moment, you actually have to put your phone in a particular spot to use it as a key. That's how it's authenticating in some way. I think to unlock, you can just be kind of go close to it with the watch. So we're waiting to see a little bit of how this works out. But yeah, there's going to be more and more of that kind of stuff, and I'm looking forward to it because I'm a runner. So I've always got one of these stupid key fobs to somehow carry with me while I'm running. I don't necessarily have good pockets, but I have a watch with me at all times.
One of the car companies has a commercial. Yeah. The dog keeps burying things in the front yard, and one of them is the car keys. And so the couple has to go somewhere, and good thing we have this whatever brand car it was, and they pulled their phone up to the doorknob and it unlocks.
Yeah. Tesla does a great job with that sort of stuff. I don't have a Tesla, but I know some people who have Teslas, and it's definitely an app intensive car.
Yeah,
well, we're ordering one of them. So in January or February, I'll let you know.
Oh, excellent. Which one are you getting?
The new one. Is it the Y?
The Y, okay.
I think it's the Y. It's a little SUV.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Chuck, you don't know this stuff, but Rochester, as my understanding, just got a Tesla dealer quite recently. Or Tesla repair center, yeah. Because the problem was that for the longest time, Ithaca, as people around here know, is other bumper stickers, is centrally isolated. So it was people who had Teslas in Ithaca had to drive 4 hours in multiple directions, to be able to get their cars repaired. Mm-hmm. And so friends of mine who have a Tesla just said that, yeah, the Rochester had one now, which Rochester's less than 2 hours away. So like, yes, okay, Tesla's just became a whole lot easier to get.
Yep, it's over on the corner of West Henrietta and Jefferson. But
okay, cool.
You can't test drive one.
Just repair.
You can just look at them in the parking lot. There's some problem with New York State and the number of sites they had, so they can't do test drives there.
New York State is one of the worst for this. I did not realize, I once heard a podcast about it, I think, that there's these incredible laws that protect auto dealers.
You can't have a factory-owned dealer. It has to be an independent dealer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You have to buy the car online.
Yeah. Just nuts. So,
well, Adam, can I ask you another question?
Sure.
AirPods versus AirPod Pro.
Oh.
You rated the quality of them, but I want to know how they stay in. My husband just had open heart surgery and he's starting cardiac rehab and he wants to buy a treadmill or an exercise bike. And on his wish list, he had the AirPods. So I'm wondering if there's something better that would stay on, or whatever.
So I did a big comparison article about this in TidBITS. If you
I read it.
You read that? Okay, good. So what I think is fascinating about the AirPods and the AirPods Pro is that the AirPods, I actually think, stay in better and are more comfortable than the AirPods Pro. And that's because they have this slightly longer. I don't want to. I'm a little careful. I don't want to quite pull them out. I'm not quite sure what will happen when I do. Yeah, my computer already grabbed them. The AirPods have the longer stem.
Mm-hmm.
And which you can see, hey, look at Chuck's ears. Yeah. And what's interesting about the longer stem is you think, oh, that's not as good because it's sort of more obvious and it's like longer and going to overbalance. But what it turns out is it's one of those situations like you've seen those wine bottle holders where it's just like at a perfect angle. And the wine bottle, just like you're like, how does it stand there? Because it's at the perfect angle and the weight and everything. Yeah. That's how I feel the AirPods work. They're cantilevered perfectly, at least for my ears. In comparison, the iPads Pro, because they have those silicone plugs on them, which provides the passive noise cancellation, you got to kind of push them in. And so I wear those when I'm doing yard work because I can put them under ear protectors. They are small under ear protectors, which the AirPods are not. But they don't stay in very well. And I'm constantly having to, take my ear protectors off and like poke them into my ear canal more. And so I wish there was a way to test these because everyone's ears are different.
Right.
But that conclusion I came to was don't assume that the AirPods Pro are just better because they're more expensive. Their noise cancellation is amazing and wonderful. And if you really want noise cancellation, get them, no question. But as far as comfort goes, I like the AirPods Pro or AirPods better because one, they stay in better. And two, I don't get that like water in my ear feeling of having my ear canals blocked.
That was a very informative article you wrote.
Well, thank you. It was an unusual scenario. Just people who haven't seen the article, I had the AirPods, and my wife has AirPods as well, and she lost one of hers. And she knew it was in the house somewhere, and we went like a month and a half, 2 months, didn't find it. And finally, I said, "Look, I think we had like an Apple gift card or something." It's like, I'll get the AirPods Pro, and you can have my AirPods, because she really liked the AirPods and didn't want to even try the AirPods Pro. So we get the AirPods Pro. I use them for like a week or something, and then she's doing something, and she opens a drawer that she didn't normally use, and somehow the AirPod had fallen into this drawer. So we ended up with 2 sets of AirPods, and so I got to test back and forth, and I thought it was a really interesting opportunity because it's not something you really need to live with these things for a while. You can't just try them once in a store and sort of go, "Oh yeah, I know which ones I'm going to like." And so I tried to really suss out and explain the difference and way I felt about them. So yeah, if anyone was interested in them, they're both great, but do not discount the cheaper ones.
Have you tried the AirPods Pro without the rubber stuff on them?
You need to have rubber stuff on them. There's 3 different sizes, and I've tried the different sizes, and I didn't really notice the difference. But yeah,
Oh,
I think they
parts
would
in the
be
dark.
hard and uncomfortable without the rubber plug.
Adam?
Yeah.
There is an app for making your iPhone turn into a hearing aid.
Yes.
And you could set the iPhone near the speaker, and my father, who could hear very little, wore earplugs, and it helped him a lot.
Yeah.
Is there a way to do that with earpods?
Yes, and in fact, it's even built into
the iPhone could actually be set up on a lectern.
On a lectern, yes, probably. So in fact, this is even built into iOS. It's a feature. If you go into control, you might have to add it in Control Center. I can't really, probably not gonna be able to see it, but it's in Control Center. It's called Live Listen. And it's got a little ear icon, and basically that's exactly what it does. Is it just turns on the microphone in the phone, and then sends the audio to the AirPods in your ears. My father has hearing problems as well, and I had him try it, and he liked it, but he didn't think he was going to be. He thought it would be too awkward to actually be like pointing his phone everywhere to listen to things. And he had some kind of Bose things that he was doing better than.
Put the phone, just put it in your pocket, and it picks up so much room noise. It's really wonderful.
No, I thought that was brilliant. I've talked to people who use it and really like it. I haven't had a chance. I mean, my hearing's okay. I mean, it's not great, but it's okay enough that I haven't gone there yet. But some point perhaps. But I think that's one of those things that's just getting better and better. Well, how are we doing? Got to answer any more questions for folks? I think we've actually covered the bulk of all the iPhone stuff. Am I right, Chuck?
I would think so, Adam. And I'll ask you to wrap up with one question.
Okay.
Will we see another Apple event this year?
Yes.
Do you think?
Yes, I'm pretty sure we will. And the reason I think the reason we will is because we have two big announcements coming, and they're Mac. So we know that Apple wants to release an Apple Silicon Mac, and we know that Apple has to release Big Sur. So to me, that's got an Apple event written all over it. And there could be something else in there tossed in as well, like AirTags or who knows what as well. They do sometimes throw in the stuff that's a little bit off. But I mean, they're not going to want. I mean, if they've got a snazzy Apple Silicon Mac, I think they're going to want to show it off, and that might also be their opportunity to again change the industrial design. It won't just. It could be. I mean, if I were Apple, I'd do this just to, again, make that little bit of a break, so that hey, this looks like a new Mac, and this has got our chip in it, and wow, isn't it great? So that's what I'd do if I were Apple. But I do think we'll see another one. It's not uncommon for them to. Last November they released the 16-inch MacBook Pro. So it's not uncommon for them to have a Mac announcement in November, I particularly with the fact they can do their own completely controlled announcements. I don't see why they wouldn't.
Yeah, I have to admit, I really hadn't. I thought about this Apple Silicon Mac, but I really hadn't thought about putting it in conjunction with Big Sur.
Yeah,
that would make a huge amount of sense.
Right. And it could very well be. I mean, just like so people know, like the iPhone 12 and 12 Pro, you can pre-order on Friday and get next week. The others are November 6th and get on the 13th, and they haven't even announced a date for the 4th generation iPad Air yet. So I think it would be entirely within Apple's realm to show off, say, in 3 weeks, I guess, beginning in November, to show and have an event where they show off the new Mac and Big Sur, where Big Sur ships immediately, and the new Mac is before the end of the year, or you can order it in December, kind of thing. So we may not be getting it much before the end of the year, but I'll bet they'll show it off before the end of the year. I mean, that's I'm putting my money on that.
I would wish that Apple would at least people put their own memory in. because
laptops, never going to happen with laptops. Desktops, yes.
Yeah, I got the 16-inch MacBook Pro, and one of the drawbacks is you can't put in a new hard drive, you can't put in memory, and I'm just afraid with the new iMacs, they already went with soldered in SSD for their 27-inch iMac. Whether they're going to allow people to
my understanding is it's
memory.
not soldered. So, I mean, I have a 2020 that I obviously haven't opened up. The problem with the iMac is that it's adhesive around the screen. You have to cut the screen off, and then to remove the SSD, it's on the back side of the motherboard. So you have to pull the motherboard off. It's a multi-hour job. But it is my understanding, at least in the earlier ones, it is a blade SSD, so it does plug into something. So it's not.
Well, with the iMacs up to the 2 terabyte, it is soldered in. The higher than 2 terabyte, they have the blade.
But part of the problem is that because the encryption is tied to the T2 chip,
new ones,
if you change the drive, you can't use the encryption.
Right.
And so we've been reading that in the service manuals. You change the logic board, you have to do the Touch ID board too. You change the drive, you have to do the Touch ID board too.
Yeah. I mean, certainly the 27-inch iMac, at least you can upgrade RAM really easily. 21, not so much. And laptops at this point simply aren't going to be upgradable. It's like the iPhones. There's just too the engineering to get them to be as small as they are precludes opening them. Anything that you can open has to have engineering that goes into that and actual physical parts. I mean, if you go back and look at some of those old laptops that we had, where there's a lever that you could pull and it would kind of eject the battery out the side. All that infrastructure, all that superstructure to be able to hold the battery and have the lever and all that added weight and size, and that's the kind of stuff Apple wanted to move away from. So I don't think we'll be seeing it. Plus, as Steve points out, when you bring the T2 chip in with the security stuff, and it just changes the whole ball game. But I do think that, at least with the Mac Pro and the iMac, we can at least get some of this kind of stuff manipulable again. Oh, well.
I think that's a wrap. Oh, Steve, sorry.
Well, I was going to say that to Adam, Ithaca got a shout out on some cop show I was watching.
Whoa.
2 cops in the car were discussing his daughter got into Cornell. And they lived in California, so he really wanted her to go to UCLA, and so he was a little upset about moving halfway across the country. And the other cop said, "Well, I hear Ithaca is really nice this time of year." And wow, she knew Cornell, and she knew it was in Ithaca.
Yeah.
Adam, it doesn't matter what user group we go to. You have a Cornell connection somewhere. I don't understand it.
It's a big university.
I guess.
We actually so the thing that Cornell's been in the news for a lot recently is that Cornell has the vet. We have a vet school for people who don't know, and it is the New York State Diagnostic Laboratory. So Cornell has the capacity to run 10,000 COVID-19 tests a day internally. And as a result, that's actually more than they need. They only need like 5,000 a day. But Cornell is testing every student twice a week and is testing faculty and staff, anyone who comes onto campus at least once a week, if not twice a week. Sort of depends on your job if you're coming on. And they had a very brief spike after people came back, and that they basically found everybody. They traced the heck out of them. They stuffed them in the Statler Hotel. We have our own hotel because we have a hotel school, and to quarantine the heck out of them. And since then, we've had something like 8 cases. I mean, it's like 1 and 2 or 0, 0, 0, 0, 1 and 2. So it's been a huge success, and Cornell's been getting a lot of national press for this, and justifiably so. They got a shout out on Good Morning America. That was basically an infomercial, which has been kind of fun to see. So yeah, it's been good because Ithaca lives and dies by Cornell in a lot of cases because Cornell is so many. Well, it's 15,000, 20,000 people. So it doubles our population. when it's in session. And so everyone was very worried when the students were going to be coming back, but Cornell had a plan and they implemented it and they followed through. So it's been really good to see.
That's great.
I just looked up Cornell people and I see Ruth Bader Ginsburg is Cornell.
Yep. We've been getting a lot of alumni stuff with her.
Bill Nye, Bill Nye,
the science guy. Yep.
Yeah.
So
Toni Morrison.
Yeah. All sorts of Kurt Vonnegut. Yeah. Vladimir Nabokov. Sorry, we could do this all night.
Yeah, I was going to say we'll just keep going here.
Well, you do realize my mother was Cornell University archivist, so it's not fair. I really do know this. I could talk about this for a long time, and if I had to stop, I'd get her to do it for the rest of the.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank the Apple CIDER user group for having us. This has been a lot of fun. We covered a lot of ground, answered a bunch of questions, and so, folks, thank you very much.
And where can we find you, Chuck?
You can find me, and you will see this eventually on MacVoices.com. I'll probably slice it up into a couple episodes to make it a little easier to get through. But I'll make sure that everything goes out, assuming that the recordings worked. That's always the big assumption.
And I've got 2 recordings here just in case.
Yeah. Well, I'll take yours first, but I do want to say something too, though, that during COVID, a lot of user groups have shut down and just said, we're not going to bother. You guys are still getting together, doing the virtual meeting thing, yes. And it's clear that you have a very active membership. So good job. Please keep it up, everybody.
Try.
Great job. Great job.
Well, thank you. And also thanks to Adam Engst. And you can put in your plug now.
Yeah, please.
Come and read my stuff on tidbits.com. We just killed ourselves yesterday to cover the HomePod Mini and the iPhone 12. So if you're looking for any more information about those, if we didn't cover, which I think we got pretty much everything, but if you want to see it written down, it's there.
I was a little worried when Apple announced that the date was October 13th. And, oh, my God, is Adam going to be able to? Can he still wake up? Do his hands still move?
Let me tell you, yesterday I actually had I coach running workouts, too, and I actually had to leave at like 5:10 to go coach a workout and then come back. And I was working until 9 o'clock. So it was just, it's because again, so many details and you're trying to make sure you get them right to the extent possible. And luckily people are very understanding when you make mistakes and that kind of coverage. They're like, yep, I fixed it. Yep, I fixed it. Yep, I fixed it. Oh boy. Well, thank you all so much. It's been great being here. And hey, one of these days we'll get to do it in Rochester again.
Okay. Thank you, Adam. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chuck.
So I'm going to do the wrap up, folks. This is Mac Voices. I'm Chuck Joyner. We would love to virtually come to your mug too, if you still are working. But until then, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with Mac Voices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.